Hello, today we'll be talking about 2.4, which is the library of functions. So in this video we will see different types of functions and their graphs. So the first type of function that we'll see is the linear. We talked about these types of graphs before, which is linear is y equals to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, this is the general form for the linear graph, where f of x equals to what? Equals to x. So this will be our general graph. Okay, here on this linear graph there are some additions here, 3x and here minus 3x minus 5, but I don't want to talk about this right now. I just want you to be introduced here to the types of graphs and what are they going to look like. So this is for linear function. Let's see what's the next idea. Okay, first let me tell you some notes about the linear function. In the linear function there are different stuffs that we can speak about, like it's an odd function. What does it mean, an odd function? It will be symmetric with respect to the y-axis, so that means if you saw whatever point here, you'll find it here. And the other thing is its domain is real number because it's going to the negative x-axis and positive x-axis. Its range is also real number because it's going to the positive and negative real axis. The intercept is here 0.00. Okay, now let's take the second type of function, which is the squaring function. Okay, in the squaring function you'll have this will be the graph, looks like a U. So this is the graph, the general form for f of x equals to what? Equals to x squared. Okay, here the domain of the function is the set of real numbers because it's going to the negative and positive x-axis, but the range is non-negative real numbers because it's starting from 0 and going only to the positive side. If you say here it's positive, that means I'm not including the 0, so it's better to express it as non-negative real numbers. This is the best way to express the range. The function is even. Why it's even? Because it's reflective based on the what? With respect to the y-axis. Once a graph is symmetric with respect to the y-axis, that means it's an even function. If you have a point here, you'll find it here. That means it's within the y-axis. Okay, the graph has an intercept of 0, 0. Here you can see it. The graph is decreasing from negative infinity. Here you can write from negative infinity to 0. At this point it's decreasing. It's increasing from 0 to positive infinity. The graph is symmetric with respect to the y-axis. The relatively minimum point is here 0, 0. So this is the general form for square. By the way, the graphs for squares functions is called a parabola. The graph for a square function is called parabola. Okay, now we'll be talking about cubic functions. Okay, this is the general form or the general drawing or curve for cubic function. This curve here. So it is for f of x equals to what? X cubed. Alright, here let's talk about the range and the domain. First, the domain is positive and negative x-axis, so it's real numbers. The range is the same, positive and negative y-axis. Again, it's a real number. The function is odd. Why is this function odd? Because it's symmetric with respect to the origin. What that means, if you have any point here, you'll find it here. So it's symmetric with respect to the origin. Good. And the graph has an intercept of what? 0, 0. Okay, this graph here it's increasing and also here it's increasing. So the graph is increasing from negative infinity to positive infinity. In the entire graph it is increasing. The graph is symmetric with respect to the origin. Okay, I'm talking about the general forms as I told you, so I don't want to speak about this graph. Let's go to the next idea. By the way, graphs of cubic functions is called a hyperbola. Okay, this is the root. What's this? The reciprocal. Alright, this is the square root function. Actually, it's supposed to be starting from 0. So this is f of x equals to root of x. This is the square root of x. And what's the domain? The domain is 0 and positive real numbers. So it means non-negative real numbers. Here we have non-negative real numbers. The range is only also positive and 0. So again, it's a non-negative real numbers is the range. It have an intercept at 0.00. The graph is increasing here, so it's increasing from 0 to positive infinity. We cannot determine if this graph is odd or even. So these are all the informations that you have about square root functions. Okay, let's see the next one, which will be the reciprocal function. In the reciprocal function, this will be the drawing of the graph. The curve is this way. Okay, I don't want to talk about this one. So this is f of x equals to 1 over x. Here, what's the domain? The domain is from negative infinity to 0, but it's excluding 0. So look here, within the 0 you have an open interval, and again from 0 to positive infinity, again here 0 is not included. So on the 0 here it will be open intervals, and it's a union, that means end altogether. And also the same thing for the range. It is from negative infinity to 0, excluding the 0 of course, and same thing from 0 to positive infinity, and in both cases you'll have an open interval for the 0. Okay, this function is odd because it's symmetric with respect to the what? To the y-axis. Any point here you'll find it here. I mean, it is symmetric with respect to the origin. It does not have any intercept because it's not cutting the x or the y-axis. The graph is decreasing. Here it's decreasing, and also here it's going down. So it's decreasing in the same interval from negative infinity to 0, and again decreasing from 0 to positive infinity, and it's again symmetric with respect to the origin. So this will be the general drawing or curve for reciprocal functions. Okay, these are the parent functions, some of the important functions that you have to know. Here you have f of x equals to c. That means whatever number. For example, if f of x equals to 3, the line will be on 3. This is the horizontal line. Okay, here f of x equals to x. This is a normal linear graph. This type of graph is absolute value of x. F of x is absolute value of x. Let's talk a little bit about this type of graph. Okay, the intercept is 0, 0. It's a even one. Yeah, this function is even, and it's decreasing from negative infinity to 0 and increasing from 0 to positive infinity. The domain is all real number because it's extending from negative x to the positive x, and the range is non-negative real numbers because it's 0 and above. It's symmetric with respect to the y-axis, and this point is a relatively minimum point. So this is the absolute value of x, and this is the root of x. We already discussed about it. This is the x squared, which is the parabola quadratic function, and this is the cubic function, which is the hyperbola. This is reciprocal, and this one you don't need it for now. I just left it. Okay, because you're not going to need it a lot in your studies. So these are the parent functions that you need to know. Okay, that's all.